Good afternoon, everyone. This is Victor Ling from NewStars Migration. Welcome to my live section. Today it's been a while, I think a couple of weeks. I haven't done any live section. Today I will focusing in a couple topics. The first one, we actually published this news yesterday. We didn't publish the news. We interpreted the information yesterday. The ACT government's website update a sentence that indicate ACT government now is considering to change the rules of updating their occupation list. We all know previously ACT occupation list gets reviewed every 4 months, which we all think is too frequent. But now from the sentences, and we confirm with the ACT government as well, they are seriously considering to update the occupation list on annual basis, so every 12 months, pretty much every financial year. This occupation list will be reviewed somewhere probably in June. So once the occupation published in June, it should stay pretty stable throughout 2022 to 2023 financial year. That is a great news for most of people. Of course, for some people whose occupation gets reviewed in June and did not come back on the list in June, that's probably a bad news for you, because you don't have the chance to see the occupation list gets reviewed in 12 months of time. But for most of people, we welcome this policy because that means more stability. Currently, in my opinion, ACT governments have a lot of advantage in terms of the system of state nomination. That is, first of all, transparency. I keep on mentioning transparency of ACT nomination system. It's very transparent. All the data, it's been published in time, and all the communication, it's very straightforward. It's very transparent. The second thing is the stability. Generally speaking, the nomination guideline has been there for a couple of years at a time. There was no much of change, no major change in general. The thing we complains, a lot of the clients complains, feel uncertain about it, it's about the occupation dates. Previously, it's 4 months every time, and we all know 4 months, that means you cannot prepare anything in long term. Particularly for those people who travel in the States, try to looking for ACT migration possibilities. Every 4 months review means after you arrive, after you sit down, they probably take another month or two, the occupation may get reviewed. It happened to quite a few popular occupations we just mentioned in last financial year. For example, to my memory, the occupations such as architects, which is a very common ones, gets reviewed, and early child teachers previous gets a review. So for those people whose occupation was taken off the list, they always feel anxious. They have to wait for the occupation gets reviewed again, and some of them luckily wait for another 4 months, some of them luckily wait for another 8 months, then the occupation gets put in back again. But now it's every 12 months. That means once your occupation is on, at the beginning of the financial year, it will be there, it should be there, till the end of the financial year. So it's much better for people to plan out their migration pathway, because the bottom line is my occupation is in ACT. I don't have to worry about during the middle of the year my occupation gets removed. Once I've been there, the occupation was not there, and a lot of uncertainties, and also save a lot of time for, I think, my perspective, for ACT governments and those officers as well. They don't have to think about which one should go off, which one should go on every 4 months. That's simply too frequent, because what the system using now is a metric system, it's invitation system. Saying there's 150 occupation on the list, what government could simply do is you could raise up the invitation points for those occupation which are not highly in demand, and you can lower down the points for those one highly in demand to increase the invitation. So there was a lot of flexibilities to adjust the occupation in demand or not in demand, rather than changing the occupation is very, very frequently. So we welcome the news, but again, these information was published on ACT migration website probably a few days ago, but we noticed they 2 days ago. I think we'll wait that to be confirmed. That particular expression was included in the ACT guideline, and we're looking for the ACT nomination guidelines published in June or July, which is the latest one. So if that rules is included in the latest ACT nomination guideline, then we take that as a yes. But I think it's pretty. Currently, the information I got, it's quite certain ACT is going for annually basis occupation review. That's the first thing to talk about. Great news for most of people. My understanding. First thing, this is the first information I want to like to share. Second, this is pretty much the end of May, and we got 1 month to go. Then we'll finish this financial year. The next invitation round is somewhere around 10th of June. I think it's probably the last or the second last invitation round in this financial year. Then we're looking into the new financial year. Until this moment, most of the state governments in Australia already closed their state nomination programs. ACT remain probably the last two. I think Northern Territory is still open, and ACT is still open to the applicants till this moment. The rest of state governments already closed the programs weeks ago, some of them months ago. So again, this shows the stabilities of ACT programs and the well-planned of the programs that the invitation can go through evenly throughout the whole year. So monthly basis, they'll be able to spread the invitation through many invitation rounds all through the year, rather than shut down the programs in the middle of the financial year. That is also something very good about ACT nomination programs. The next thing is people getting asking about the points. Of course, we see some turbulence, particularly after the March. I would say, particularly after March, the points starting to go a bit of unpredictable. Some of the occupation, the points going higher, particularly after March. And then we know there's a couple of things happen in March or around March. There's a couple long weekends, a couple long holidays in March, Easter's and sort. So the officers, all those ACT officers, was taking their holiday. So the work efficiency in March is not as good as probably in January and July. January and February, or the months before, we see they be able to do weekly invitation, but we didn't see that somewhere after March. That's first thing. Second, there's a couple things pops up as well in influence. I'll probably say the efficiency of the team. But another important factor to think about it is the nomination places left. Although ACT government be able to plan to divide the total invitation numbers into 12 months, but as time goes, particularly this financial year, as we keep on mentioning this is one of the most competitive ACT nomination program year in the past 5 years. The points is going way too high in most of occupation because there was not enough places to be able to coordinate applicants under different streams: onshore streams, onshore critical streams, offshore streams, small business streams, employer sponsor streams. So there's a lot of streams taking places out of not so much overall allocation. So after January, you see a lot of competitions happening, and we realized, particularly in April, we didn't see much of invitation round next year. We see invitation round on 20th of March. Then you see another invitation round, which is happening in 29th of April. So that's pretty much a month between. So 29th of April, 28th of March, and after that is 11th of May. So we only see three invitation round in the past a month and a half. So there was not much of invitation round happening, and the next one is the 10th of June. So there was fewer invitation round and fewer places, fewer invitation given to the potential applicants. In terms of points, 491 180, I'm talking about onshore first. we're starting to see, I'm taking, for example, taking the 11th of May invitation round, for example, the lowest points for 491 among most of occupation now it's about 75. So you can take in this way, the cutting off points for the whole metric system now, it's actually 75. For 190 onshore applicants, we see 95 in the May one, so 95 in the May invitation. And there's a few occupation which is 85. There's really a few which is 85 points. For example, with general practitioner, speech pathologies, it's 85 points. So I know these one, we all realize these ones very special ones, 85 points. Electrical engineering actually go down to 85 as well, but probably only one or two people, we don't know, get invited. So there's a few occupation, but generally speaking, 95, it's what we see in the invitation round in 11th of March. On the 29th of April, similar, very similar. The lowest points for 491 is 75. The lowest points for 190 is 90 points. On the 28th of March, it's the lowest points. We be able to see some occupation go down to 65, and for 190 ones, it's actually 95 points. So now the lines dropping here is 491, you're looking at about 75, and 190 you're looking at about 85 around, sometimes 90 plus. But would that be the points or the referencing points, the indication points for the next financial year? I'm not talking about the 10th of June. In the 10th of June, we're probably going to see very similar invitation. I think that's a principle. That's an idea what the case officer and the officers, the people in charge in ACT have been now is I don't have much a place of staff. So I want to be very careful about the balance. The balance is I want to get different occupation. Those people who had the highest points within their occupation group invited, and to use up all the places available in the end of the financial year, and they try to keep the points high because the limitation of the places. So I don't expecting. I got a lot of clients asking, will the points drop down on the 10th of June, like what we see last financial year and the financial year before? Because by that time, normally in June we see ACT will have a bit of more places available because throughout the past 11 months, they'll be able to squeeze a little bit of leftover. I would say, probably not a good word to say it, but a bit of places not being properly used in every month accumulates all those available places and generating into the end of the financial year. So at the end of the financial year, that particular month in June, in the past two financial year, there are always more places available. So the points tend to go down a little bit in the month of June, but I just don't see that happening in this June because we just faced a lot of competitions here this financial year. So in the June invitation, we're expecting the points stay pretty much the same. So that's how it is. What about the small business owner stream? We get asked a lot. Previously, at the beginning of the year in June, when the program was introduced to the public, that's one of the principles, one of the indicating principle. ACT government never make any guarantee. One of the indicating principle is small business applicants will enjoy the lowest points comparing to the critical list. That simply means if most of amount that particular invitation round, the lowest points for critical list, regardless which occupation, is 75. Then 75 points will be the invitation points for 491 small business owner stream. The same rules apply to 190 as well. If the lowest points for 190 for that particular invitation round is 85, then 85 it's a referencing points for small business owner 190. We see that rules kind of applying throughout from July to March. But then in April and in May, because of the turbulence and invitation turbulence, we don't see that still as the one of the rules applying. I mean, we still see small business owner get invitation, at the points. For example, I got clients get invited at the points of 95 under small business 190, and I see people get invited with 70 points with the small business 491. So the point tend to be raised up a little bit. I think the general consideration here is probably because of limitation of places, and we all know the first group of mass applications of small business owner will actually occur in April, because that's exactly 6 months after the policy being introduced, and the applicant will be able to present to a complete financial season. So that's the April. So April we're going to expecting, that's what I see as well, that we're going to expecting much more small business owner applications compared to the months before. So I think what the ACT probably going to see in their systems, they're looking about quite a few of small business owners. So they have to make it a bit balanced. If they still apply the rule, they will give a lot of places to small business owner. When I say a lot, it's probably 40, 50, 60 in total, 491, 190 altogether. But considering they only have about 200 places or 300 places available, that's a lot. So I think the rule they're doing now is try to raise up the points, the cutting off points for small business owner at the end of financial year, just to keep the balance. Not necessarily saying they're not welcoming small business owner applicants. And I get the information from ACT, the people in charge as well. They still telling me that they still welcoming the program, and they still encouraging the applicants to do the best of their business. Of course, you're going to maintain your business and waiting for the new financial year. So the general rule is small business owner will still enjoy pretty much the lowest points of the system. Otherwise, my opinion, perspective, it does not show the advantage of the programs. It does not show the attractions of the program, because we all know when we talk about small business stream, we talk about investment, we talk about create job opportunities, and when we talk about investment, it's generally about a lot of people investing over $10,000, $100,000 in purchasing a business. So if you're getting some people to purchasing a business or to start a business, cost you a few $1,000s, and then you have to run the business for 6 months at a time, generate profits, generate income, paying the tax, pay the GST. There's a lot of work to do, and at the meantime, I still had to earn somewhere around 95 points to be able to earn 190 nomination, comparing to a lot of occupations, which the invitation point is very similar. Of course, the majority of the small business applicants are accountant major, and we realize that. Accountant major currently on the critical list, 190 invitation points about 125, 120, 125. 491 is about 105, 110. 110. I know there's significant differences, but this is how it is. We're looking about certain percentage, 20%, 30%, 40% of the overall applications in metric system now are still accountant students. That's just a fact. And the reason to have the small business owner strain is just to direct some of them to looking for different pathway. Of course, at a cost. The cost is to have a business. So there must be the principle, which is small business owner should have a bit of lower invitation points, and we're expecting that still to be the rules of the ACT government. That's basically the conclusion. And what's going to happen next financial year, because we like to do a bit of prediction, but again, this is just my personal perspective. I get no guarantee from any authority about those information, but what we're seeing here is next financial year, would that be a good or bad one? My personal opinion is it will be a better one compared to this financial year for sure. We went through one of the worst ACT nomination programs. When I say worst, doesn't mean the programs have any problem. That I'm simply talking about the potential applicants, which is very tough. A lot of competitions, the points go extremely high. So for them, it's been unfortunate. A lot of people are waiting. But next financial year, based on the general tendencies of the migration program in Australia, the Department of Home Affairs encouraging regional area particularly to get nomination places, more and more nomination places. The ACT government is corresponding there as well. So we heard that ACT government is trying to get more places, probably 1,000 more or even more, to coordinate with the demands. If that happen, then what we're going to see is, naturally the points will go down a little bit, and it is the something we expect to happen. And once we have enough nomination places, then next financial year is something really looking forward to see, because not just the programs have transparency, not just the programs have more stability, bringing by the certainties of the occupation list. The ACT programs will have more capacity. So we're talking about transparency, stability, and capacity, and that makes ACT nomination programs is really one of the greatest one in Australia at this stage. One of the governments we didn't see in any other places, which were doing invitation rounds quite often on a regular basis, and they published the invitation result pretty much the same day or the second day, and they do the summary to the best they can, and they try to keep the application simple and straightforward, and they try to keep the rules as strict as possible. So they always apply the rules, and on top of that, if they have enough places to coordinate with the demand, I believe the ACT programs were going to attract a few more people to come moving from interstates, because they're looking for stability. And that is also very good news for those people who stay in ACT for a long time. Either you're coming here for study and you've been staying for a year or two, even more, and all those people who move into ACT to do small business, because you have the places to coordinate that would naturally bring down the points. So the chance for your application get invited will be higher compared to this financial year. That's just the some basic presumptions we'll be able to come up with if ACT getting more places, and if the occupation list stay stable on annual basis. So every year they gets renewed. And I just don't. Another question being asked is, some people is asking, particularly those people new to ACT, they're not familiar with the ACT. They're asking about, would there be major change to ACT nomination guidelines? And we always reply it's unlikely to happen. We see that we're being very quite familiar with the ACT migration guidelines, and in the past few years, every financial year, what we see is minor change, minor adjustment, but never major changes. So that occupation list, the structure of the occupation list, the expressions of the ACT migration guideline should stay pretty much the same. So that's a few things we'd like to share. So what we should do now, for those people who are looking to move into ACT, I got quite a bit of consultation in the past months. People are asking, should I go for ACT now? Should I move to ACT? Because I heard your occupation gets renewed in May. Should I wait after May? But now, as I mentioned, it's probably going to be yearly renew. My suggestions, if you think your occupation is not one of the safest one, when I say safest one, we're going to refer to the safe group, generally speaking, ITs, engineers, and probably teachings and nursings, and those very common groups. If you don't think you are one of those ones, let's wait until probably June, in June or possibly early July. When you see your occupations on the list of ACT critical list, and when you see that, and when you see the the sentence in the ACT guidelines saying we don't renew the occupation on 4 months basis, we're going to renew the occupation on yearly basis, it's a time to seriously think about moving to ACT. Of course, by the time or around that time, I think the information about how many allocation ACT governments gets approved by the Department of Home Affairs should be spread out somewhere. So people will I'll probably do a live section as well. And ACT have enough places to coordinate with more demands, and that's a time you should seriously think about moving to ACT. For those people still waiting, if you've been here for 2 years or 3 years or even 1 year and more, and your points is because you've been frustrated by the high invitation points in this financial year. For example, you are IT major. We all know last financial year IT major for 491 was used to be going down as low as 55, but this financial year easily you're looking about 75, and your point is about 65 or 70. My suggestion again, let's wait till the first quarter of next financial year. If you see the IT, the invitation point for IT major going down, then you should stay longer rather than go to a different place to start over again. And let's just sum up the opinions. In the meantime, of course, the golden rules in ACT is always try to increase your points, even 5 points, because every 5 points will means you lose about, depends on occupation. If you're talking about accountant, every 5 points you're probably losing about 1,000 competition, maybe, and that's what you should aim for. Don't be sitting there and saying I have 70 points. That should be good enough. I'm better than, some people I know. They only have 65. But you talking about competition. Competition is everywhere, not just in Australia, and also next financial year, there will still be offshore applications, so overseas applicants. Again, offshore applicants, and there are quite a bit of inquiry as well. A lot of you follow my Facebook, you are aware I'm from mainland China, and recently we get a lot of concentration from mainland China, for some particular cities, and they were asking for migration possibilities. And when we do their calculation, when they do their checking of their eligibility, some of them are having a great job, great careers in China, but when it comes to metric system, it's fair for everyone. Their points, most of them, their points will be ending up with 60, 65, probably maximum 70. So for them, the chance to get even offshore's 491 invitation is not great. Again, because of there was not much of places allocated to offshore as well. So that bring up the points. But if next financial year there was enough places, or I wouldn't say enough, there are more places to be able to bring down more capacities and more space for offshore applicants, and there will be some chance for those potential applicants as well. It will be the same for those people who pay attention to ACT offshore streams in Nepal, in India, in Bangladesh. It's the same. This is a time. If you're thinking about, that's a chance for me after you do the Canberra metrics calculation and you realize my point is about 60, 65, and my occupation is on the list currently. What you should do is you should seriously thinking about starting the whole process. The first thing is to get your skill assessment done. Okay. A lot of people are going through a better set skill assessment, and that single skill assessment going to take you to about depends on country, depends on if you go for priority or not, assessment or not. It will take weeks, probably to 1 to 2 months. So you want to get that ready first. Second thing is the English requirement. Regardless, my personal opinion, regardless how many places ACT government is getting, I don't think they're going to remove the criteria for the English requirement for most of occupation, that is 7 each. So you need to get your English score ready as well. So you need to have your skill assessment ready, you need to have your English score ready, and then all you have to do is just once you have these two, and once you meet the eligibility criteria, the precondition, and then you can see if there's anything changed, which means if the offshore invitation become easier next financial year due to there are more places available from ACT governments. I don't know if once they have more places available for offshore, will they lower down the requirement to balance the supply and demand situation for either for 491 or 190. We just have to see how many places they're actually getting and how they think about in terms of controlling the supply, the application numbers. Were they using the invitation points or were they using the eligibility criteria? So they got a lot of way to control the programs. But looking forward to a better financial year in probably 5 to 6 weeks of time. But yeah, that's a few information I'd like to share this time, and then this is one of the very interesting financial year to go through, ACT program to go through as well. This year we see quite a bit of change, and a lot of uncertainties, a lot of things we never expected. But luckily, we still see a lot of clients get the invitation, and wish all those people still waiting for ACT nomination, we're going to see a better ACT nomination year ahead to come. Okay, thank you for watching the live section this afternoon.